In tonight's big story breakdown, a closer look at the state's finances as scathing findings are revealed in yet another investigation into the State Department of Mental Health.
State Auditor Cindy Byrd released part 1 of her preliminary audit report requested by the governor to look into the embattled agency's finances. And the issues she found run much deeper. Employees threatened, forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, and discouraged from cooperating with the state auditor's investigation. These are issues outlined in part 1 of Cindy Byrd's report, which calls out the tone of top brass at the Department of Mental Health, all while the agency endures a financial crisis.
Keep in mind, as the auditor, I have administrative subpoena power to both interview and obtain documentation. So those are things that we'll look into further in part 2 of this audit.
Part 1 focused on pinpointing just how much the agency is short, finding it needs just shy of $30 million to get through the current fiscal year. That echoes separate findings the governor released Monday, but the state auditor's office went further to give context as to how the agency ended up in this mess.
We presented some of those causes because we feel like the legislature only has 2 weeks left in session and they need to understand this as they're getting ready to write another check for $30 million to help this agency out.
The audit report calls out questionable past spending, first uncovered by Fox 25. Narcan vending machines we found sitting unused in a warehouse, and massive advertising spending for the 988 mental health line, including a Super Bowl ad that forced construction to pause on a new mental health facility. But even more concerning, Byrd says, is another issue Fox 25 previously investigated: a sharp rise in payroll. In the span of just over a year, Mental Health Commissioner Ali Friesen hired 21 new executives making 6 figures and handed out over $4 million in raises greater than 10%. And payroll at mental health is still going up.
If you look at even fiscal year 25, which is not in the report, it's on track to be an additional $20 million this year.
Do we need different leadership?
This is a $750 million plus agency. If you were in the real world with a business, you would absolutely have a qualified CFO.
Any specific wrongdoing will be revealed in part 2 of Byrd's report. She also plans to scrutinize recent and ongoing terminations at the agency to ensure they weren't retaliation. One thing that is clear, she says, there is no one person or even one administration to blame for this money mess at mental health.
We see that we were on this trajectory, so this financial mismanagement is going to cover multiple administrations.
No word on when we can expect part 2 of the report to be released. In the meantime, the state auditor's office is back to prioritizing completing their highly anticipated audit of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority.
And as Wendy mentioned, the governor also released an initial financial examination report for the Department of Mental Health. According to the governor's office, the report outlines 52 targeted recommendations to strengthen internal controls, financial accountability, and service delivery across the mental health system. This includes hiring a chief financial officer and internal auditor with deep public sector experience, adopting OMES approved accounting systems, and enhancing transparency through real-time dashboards and public reporting. The governor says the plan is to implement the recommendations in phases during the next 18 months. The House is moving the general appropriations budget bill forward, but it did not happen without debate.
Fox 25's Capitol reporter Paige Taylor breaks down the arguments from the state capitol.
House Bill 2766 is the general appropriations budget bill for fiscal year 2026. State representatives both for and against the proposed budget speaking out on the House floor.
We are playing a short game. We are not playing a long game here.
This budget is not perfect, and I won't stand here and attest that it is, but it is a very good budget, and I stand behind it, and I'm very proud of it.
Last week, the governor and House and Senate Republican leadership came together to announce a $12.59 billion budget agreement. The House considered the general appropriations bill on the House floor on Tuesday morning. State Representative Trish Ranson saying while there are some good investments in the budget, like an OU pediatric heart hospital and a new veterinary school on OSU's campus, there are other things that are missing.
We know that things are missing out of this budget. And those come from the talks with the subcommittee chairs. Issues that my caucus has brought forward, bills that we have brought forward on these are the needs of the people in our constituencies. These are the needs of the people of Oklahoma. And we are met with no.
Several Republicans echoing each other, saying this budget was a compromise.
No budget's perfect. All budgets are part of compromise. There's things in here I really like. There's things in here I don't like. If, the House was king of Oklahoma for the day, we'd have a great budget.
Democrats arguing they were left out of budget conversations.
This measure demonstrates a lack of inclusivity of all of our districts, a lack of future thinking, and a lack of genuine concern for the people, not the businesses, of Oklahoma.
House Appropriations Chairman Trey Caldwell pushing back on that claim, saying he held office hours at least once a week and took more than 130 meetings with members, including Democrats.
I think if the concept is we didn't get everything we wanted in the budget, then that is correct. But Mr. Speaker, that applies to everyone in this room. That applies to the Speaker himself, all the way down to the most freshman member of the minority caucus.
The vote for this bill did not fall entirely along party lines, with some Democrats voting yes and some Republicans voting no. The final vote for this bill was 73-20. It now heads over to the Senate. Reporting at the state capitol, Paige Taylor, Fox 25 News.
And state lawmakers plan to appropriate $10.8 million to help fund 3 projects. House Bill 2794 would allocate money from the Progressing Rural Economic Prosperity Fund. $1.8 million would be for infrastructure improvements to an industrial park in Frederick that's in the process of expanding. Also included in that funding is the Uncommon Ground Sculpture Park in Edmond. The measure would put $5 million toward the project. Questions were raised on the House floor today about why money for rural Oklahoma would be used to build a municipal park. The lawmaker presenting the bill says the park will be utilized by people in surrounding rural areas. Well, the funding bill would also allocate $4 million to help cover the cost of moving the USS Batfish Memorial. It has been closed since Muskogee experienced historic flooding and damaged the submarine in 2019. The money would allow the vessel to be relocated to an area with stable ground. Lawmakers argue the submarine is significant to our military history and it attracts tourists to the area. The House passed the funding bill by a 61-30 vote.
Funding to account for issues at the federal level not included in this budget bill. A Stillwater representative raised concerns about whether the state has the cash reserve to be able to step in and cover things like Medicaid match changes and SNAP benefit cuts. Representative Trey Caldwell says we do, but also believes these are things the legislature should be thinking about and start to take steps now to ensure we're ready.
We need to start auditing our SNAP benefits in the state of Oklahoma and make sure we get under that threshold of 5%, which I think is what the federal guidelines going forward of what your fraud rate can be before you start getting penalized. And we need to make sure that we clean that up. We should empower the state auditor to go in there and make sure we clean that up so we don't have that draconian $450 million hit where if they pulled back the SNAP benefits. As for Medicaid, there's been tons of discussion on the expansion population and what would the overall net effect be to our fiscal budget if the day came when the federal government pulled us from a 90-10 match down to, say, hypothetically, a 60-40. It's something to be, again, we have to be aware of that going on a forward basis.
According to Representative Caldwell, it's going to take a year or two to figure out the long-term plans for addressing these issues. Now, Fox 25 is committed to tracking your tax dollars, holding the powerful accountable. So if you've got a tip about government waste or something that you'd like us to investigate, just contact the Fox 25 Waste Watch hotline. You can leave us a message at the number on your screen or email to wastewatch@okcfox.com. You can learn more about the budget bill and the audits of mental health departments' finances on okcfox.com.
Plus, you can find all of our previous big story breakdowns on our YouTube channel. Scan the QR code on your screen or search OKC Fox.